Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to an episode of Dreadlocks. I'm Gunther the Great, and today we're going to be talking about Lil Pump's dreadlocks. Not only his dreadlocks, but kind of how he ruined them and kind of where it began, where he started to go kind of in a downslope with his dreadlocks. Of course, they look okay, but I'm going to show you guys some things that he did to his dreadlocks that kind of put them in a bad position. Although they're okay and they'll be fine because they are dreadlocks, and the thing about dreadlocks is it's already a bunch of, not necessarily loose hair, but it's a bunch of dead hair or hair that has already fallen out that is usually inside of dreadlocks. That's why when you see people that comb out their dreadlocks like myself or anybody else who we've seen comb out their dreadlocks, there's a bunch of dead hair that comes out. Now, it's not necessarily them breaking the hair off of their scalp, it's that hair is already shed and it's just hanging out inside of the dreadlock. That's why dreadlocks either appear really long or they appear really thick, because it's collecting all of your dead hair that typically will fall out. A lot of people don't know that, and that's why when people comb out their dreadlocks or say anything like that, or they see people with dreadlocks and they're really long and very lush, they seem very heavy and very full. It's because all that dead hair or the hair that has already shedded is still inside of the dreadlock. In this case, if you kill off your dreadlocks, or if you kill off like the hair, like say if you break the tips with bleaching and everything like that, like we've seen Lil Pump do, which is one of the first things that he's done that really damaged his hair. Now, it wasn't even initially the first time that he dyed his hair that really messed up his hair. It's when he started doing it excessively and he did his whole head. We'll get into that a little bit. I just want to tell you guys that before we get into actually looking at his hair and seeing that it's not only that his hair is damaged, but a lot of people's hair is damaged and them not even knowing it. So we see right here, just in this first picture I want to show you guys. Anyway, right here we see him with his hair being wrapped, and we've seen him wrapping his hair quite often. And what I mean by that is the dreadlock jewelry that he has in. It's just like rope. You can do this yourself, or you can actually buy the jewelry itself. I'm not exactly sure where, but I will link dreadlock jewelry down below so you guys can purchase yourself some. The typical dreadlock jewelry that you'll see is like the little gold rings, and those are actually pretty cool. They look very good inside of dreadlocks, which I'll link those down below. They can also be found on DREADLOCKS.com. Looking at his hair now, you can't really see that there's really any bad issues. The one thing that's really cool about his hair is the tapered hairline, and he does have a really sharp lineup, which is really nice. Especially having dreadlocks, I think a tapered hairline isn't a bad idea, because with the tension at the scalp, you can end up having a receding hairline. The hairline might not look as good if you don't have that tapered hairline, because you're trying to line up your hair with the dreadlocks in the way. So you guys can kind of see what I'm saying. But with him having a tapered hairline and actually a taper on the sides and kind of around his ears and on the back, it just makes the cut look a whole lot better. But let's talk about his dreadlocks. I mean, look at this photo. You can see that they're just all kind of different colors, and this is what your hair color will turn if you bleach it and then you try to dye it black. It'll turn kind of a weird green color. So if any of you guys have ever bleached your hair and then try to dye it back to your natural hair color, you have to constantly do that until you either cut your hair or that hair grows out, because the blonde hair, for some odd reason, when you bleach your hair and you try to dye over it, the color will tend to turn green for some odd reason. I don't know why it is, but that's what we see happening. And even taking a closer look, we can see that his hair is very dirty. Yeah, I mean, if you look at his dreadlocks, there's a whole bunch of stuff in it, and this will come with your hair attracting dirt. So it could be from waxes or anything that he uses probably inside of his hair. Or to be honest, I know that there's people out there who actually smoke weed, and that actually damages their dreadlocks as well, because it will create buildup from the smoke. That's just scientific. That's proven fact from houses burning down, or when people get smoke in their lungs. It's the same thing that will build up inside of their lungs. It's everything that kind of go inside of your dreadlocks. Now, don't get me wrong, in some of the photos that we see Lil Pump in, his dreadlocks look really clean, and this is typically right after he's done maintenance to it, and obviously he has someone who does his maintenance. But like I said earlier, look at his lineup. It's very clean, very sharp. So we see him doing the double braids, and this is actually a very popular hairstyle that he's done prior to actually dyeing his hair a whole bunch, when he had his hair in the pink and blonde. And to be honest, thinking about his pink and blonde dreadlocks, it throws me way back, because that was when I started doing dreadlock reviews, is when his hair was that color, and he was one of the first, which is pretty cool. But like I said, in this photo you can't really see much of the damage. Now in this one we can see a lot of buildup. We see it mostly at the roots, and that is from usually twisting with gel. So say if you twist with gel and then you leave that gel in for an immense amount of time, then it can create buildup, because all that gel is going to attract dirt, dust, scalp buildup, dandruff, which is just flaky scalp, which we see him actually having around his temple area. And one thing you need to know is if you're getting your hair braided like how his is right here, one thing that happens is your scalp will get tension and then it will get tension bumps, and from those tension bumps it starts to flake. And that's another way that your hair can actually get buildup. It's just because your scalp is actually pushing out buildup, because I think what happens is when you create so much tension on your scalp is trying to rejuvenate itself and overproduce any oils or anything like that, so it's pushing it all out and then it's getting into your hair. But guys, taking it back to when he had the pink and blonde dreadlocks right here, and I'm telling you, this was very iconic. I think it was healthiest his hair was, to be honest. I think the only other healthy time that his hair looked was when he had the green and red. After he bleached his hair completely, which we'll actually go to that a little later. Once he bleached his hair and then he did his hair that like teal blue color, like that's when his hair really took a toll, because you could see that his tips were just like burnt, which they overall always were, just because he bleached it to begin with. These are things that you need to watch out for. So if you plan on bleaching your hair and dyeing it, know this first off, that bleaching and dyeing are two different things. If you bleach your hair, it's literally stripping it of everything besides like the hair itself. So it's stripping your hair of its natural oils, its color, and well, not necessarily its color, but its pigment, which eventually takes out the color. So then it makes your hair a little more thin and it makes it look more frizzy. But to be honest, it does help lock up because it is so frizzy. But I would not recommend bleaching your hair just to strip it to make it frizzy in order to get dreadlock. I would say just do it the traditional route, but it does help. So if you do plan on dyeing your dreadlocks, then that's something you want to go with. Then know that it is actually going to help your hair out, because it dries your hair out and it helps it lock up quicker. Now guys, I can honestly say that of course his hair was really nice when it was in the pink and the blonde, but I think the best it looked was when he did the green and then the red. It just looked very clean, and I feel like his hair was very healthy at this point. At this time we already knew that he was doing interlocking and then obviously twisting with gel at the roots, but overall his dreadlocks looked really good. And just to touch on interlocking and twisting at the roots, this is actually a very good method, because not only are you locking up the hair, but you're making it look very maintained and very clean at the root. Because one thing you need to know is when you're interlocking, it doesn't look really clean at the root. It'll end up looking very bulky. So if you do interlocking, don't do it all the way down to the root. Do it just an inch above the root, and then you can twist the bottom so that it looks very maintained. And that's what Lil Pump does. But I think we can all agree that his hair looked the best and most healthy when it was green and red. Now guys, when he got into the purple and blonde, this is actually after when he did the teal, which I'm gonna show you guys the teal here in a second. His hair was already just destroyed at this point, and obviously he's still doing interlocking, he's doing, you know, twisting as well when he gets to that. And one thing that we started to notice around this time, and he could have possibly been doing it beforehand, but he actually was cutting and reattaching his dreadlocks. So he would cut some off in the front or cut some off in the back, and then he would reattach them in other places around his head. So we see him with all these different sizes of dreadlocks. And even in this photo with him with purple dreadlocks, we see that he has rubber bands at the tips of his dreadlocks. What he's doing is he's trying to prevent his hair from frizzing up at the tips, because his hair is so bleached and dead at the tips. Because when you bleach your hair, it's just going to frizz up at the tips, and it makes it hard for that to actually come all together. But he's actually doing good, because rubber bands is going to help you out a whole bunch in that stage. So if your hair is very frizzy at the tips, or it's not collecting, or it's not blunted, use a rubber band and give it a couple weeks and it'll start to look really good. But moving on to this photo with the teal dreadlocks, we can see that his hair is just like, it just looks very thin and doesn't look very full. We obviously can see all of his interlocks, especially in these front ones. And it looks almost as if they came out when he bleached his hair and they had to redo them, because those are like very fresh interlocks right there. This is where we started to notice that he was cutting and reattaching his dreadlocks a whole bunch. Yeah, he was doing a whole bunch to it. And I'm telling you guys, it's very borderline, because we can say that he destroyed his dreadlocks and they're not really good and they're ruined. But to be honest, dreadlocks are probably, I would say 60-40 of dead hair and your real hair. Probably somewhere in there. Probably not as much, probably about, I'd probably 70-30 of 70 of your real hair and 30 of your, you know, hair that has fallen out. So with him, it could be a higher rate because of killing it off. Either way, both people are having some hair that isn't actually attached to their scalp and then some that is. But like I said, this is when it started to take a toll and didn't look that good, and just kind of went down from there. And then obviously you try to build it back up to the photos that we seen in the beginning of him with the darker hair now. But guys, I just wanted to do a quick throwback again of how I felt like his hair was so healthy right here, even though it was bleached. But we can obviously see the interlocks in there, and then his hair was held together a whole lot better here. and it just overall looked very clean. And there was speculation of him having dreadlock extensions at this point, which he possibly could, because there are 2 different textures here, but it's hard telling. It isn't really hard to match your hair when you're dyeing your hair. So with his hair being dyed, it's really hard to tell. If they are extensions, then they did a great job on it. Now guys, to the time to where I think his hair was most healthy or looked the best and looked very full was when he had the red and green, and it just looked really clean because his dreadlocks were thickening up, they looked very healthy, and overall they looked very good. But I want to hear what you guys think down below. Do you think his dreadlocks are ruined or not, in your opinion? And also, when was your favorite stage of his dreadlocks? In my opinion, was the green and red, just because they looked very full and they looked very clean, honestly. I want to hear your comments down below. Also, I have an announcement coming up really soon about what I'm planning on doing with my hair, so stay tuned for that. I'll just talk about it in that video, so stay tuned for that. In that video, I'm also explaining why I originally cut my dreadlocks, and then I'll explain what I plan on doing next, because I'm like at ground zero right now and I have some plans for you guys. But other than that, guys, make sure to go check out DREADLOCks on Instagram and tag us so you can be featured on the page. And don't forget to go check out DREADLOCks.com because you can find all your dreadlock needs on there. But other than that, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.